We're so glad to be here and share some stories with y'all. For the youth mission team, would y'all come on up and join me up on the stage? We thought the first part we would do is, in picture, show you a little bit of some of the things that we did throughout the week. And then we thought it'd be neat for some of the students to have a chance to share with you about what impacted them throughout the week. So I'm going to give you this mic to hold on to. You don't have to talk yet. But, So let's start with a few pictures, if that's okay. Day one, this is kind of how we started out. We were pretty tough and gung-ho and excited. And we headed down, we were on our way. We left a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, on a Sunday afternoon. And we thought that we were going to leave a little early, get a jump start on the 10-hour drive by heading down to Atlanta a little early. And thought we'd spend a night in a hotel, about halfway through, maybe swim in the pool a little bit, get a good night's sleep before we slept on the floor. We're going to be roughing it for about a week. And so, as you can see, day one, we were pretty stoked and excited. But about 2.5 hours into our trip, we had a small malfunction with the church van, as in it just stopped. And it made a knocking noise for about 30 seconds, and then it just shut off as we were driving. And we were stranded in between Charlottesville and Lynchburg, 2.5 hours into our 10-hour drive, and we weren't quite sure what was going to happen. These very excited, strong people were a little unsure of what it was going to look like for God to provide for us just in the next 24 hours and how we were going to get down to the trip. We thought that we were going to serve others and to refresh other folks and to give part of our lives. But in that first night, we had a man named Stephen Goff who was just happened to be driving his pastor over to his church for their Sunday night service. And he saw this van and just had this check in his spirit that, I should go check and see if they're okay. So he came over and chatted with us for a few minutes, helped us try to jump the van. Nothing was really working. And he went back to his church, got everything squared away. They prayed for us, and he came back over, and he loaded all 12 of us into the church van, into his van, drove us to Lynchburg. We went out to dinner together, and he made sure we got to our hotels and checked in. And Stephen was a janitor at the hospital in Lynchburg, and he was a follower of Jesus. And we had this really special moment where I think all of us realized that we were kind of gung-ho and excited to be the muscle, to go down and do this work, when someone else sort of stepped in the role that we thought we were going to be in. We thought that we were the ones to go refresh, and instead this man stopped and helped us be refreshed along the way. We kind of felt like we were living the Good Samaritan story out right in real life, where we were literally stranded on the side of the road, and he stopped by and picked us up and drove us down. And so day two looks a little bit like this on the next picture. We started off with the green machine, but day two, we got a new van. Jason Berwitz and Mike Moon, who shared a little bit last week, were so faithful and wonderful to go all the way to Harrisonburg, Virginia, pick up a van, bring it all the way to us in Lynchburg. And so on day two, at about 6 o'clock on Monday evening, when the camp check-in was at 3 p.m. that afternoon, so we were already 3 hours late and had about almost 7 hours to drive, we started heading down to Atlanta from Lynchburg, Virginia. We were a little bit more tired, but the youth had a really great attitude. They were a little refreshed because we spent a little bit of time in the pool, right? At least some of you did. And so that was kind of the start to the trip. Not exactly the refreshment and the gung-ho going into it that we were thinking. But to be honest, I think already we realized that God was on mission to work in our hearts as much as we were going to work in the lives of the folks down in Atlanta. And so it sort of set us up for a really great week. So day three was our first day of mission. So we arrived at 1:15 a.m. in Atlanta. We had to be up around 6:30 or 7 so we got in at 1:15, probably were asleep by 2-ish maybe, and then got the party started first day of missions. So our group was actually split into 2 groups of 6, and we joined with 2 other groups. And the first day, some of our crew went to MedShare, which was they were packing medical supplies. They went to that were normally going to be discarded, and they actually helped sort them so that local free clinics and other places might be able to use them. And then the other group went to this place called the Gateway Center, which was a homeless resource facility that both had a shelter aspect to it. It was a former jail that they've actually renovated and turned into a homeless resource center. And then the other group also, besides the med share, did some work around the church that we were staying at. And that was probably some of Nathan's favorite work because he got down and dirty and worked hard and was basically covered in mud by the end of that day. One of the cool things about the Homeless Resource Center is that they had a whole floor dedicated to veterans, for folks who, one of the largest groups of folks who are experiencing homelessness are veterans. And so they had an entire floor dedicated to helping those who served in the military. And so it was neat to have some opportunities to work with them. So that was day 3, our first day of missions. Day 4, we had a dance party that night, but during the day, a group of us worked at the furniture bank, which was, they provided furniture for families in need who had just been homeless but now had a home, people who were experiencing HIV and AIDS. And then the other group also worked at Books for Africa, which you're going to see in the next picture. But we had a fun dance party. It was it looks like Will's a ghost and Nathan's about to jump through the ceiling there. But we worked hard all day, and they made sure the kids had a great time at night. And so that's kind of what it looked like on day 4. Day 5 was really fun because we all got to work together. And we all worked together at this place called Books for Africa. Most of in the United States, there's about 22 billion pounds of books that end up going to the trash that other communities, like in Africa, where many countries don't have libraries or resources to get books in a community, schools don't have access to books. What they've created is this great organization with a Christian heart to help with literacy, but also with learning, because they've found out that when communities have schools and education set up, there's less fighting and less violence in those communities, which helps the gospel to be spread in powerful ways. And so this was really fun. As you can see, the box that Bethany's in that picture, that box is huge, big enough where probably 4 or 5 people could have fit in it. And we would sort a whole box of donated books at a time and sort them in leisure books, educational books, everything from children all the way up through university level. And we would stack boxes and create pallets about this high or so. And it was awesome because we helped them get ahead of the curve for what they were trying to do for the month. And so that was pretty cool. That night, we also got a little free time. As you can see up at the top right, we went and saw Despicable Me 2 in 3D. And so they were all trying to touch the picture, I guess. Our last day of missions, we kind of split up again. And a group of us were working at the homeless shelter again. And we were packing meals for those who are experiencing homelessness. And a couple of those are pictures of just getting ready for the trip and some of our free time from the night before. We worked really hard that week, and we had a lot of really powerful ways that we saw God, and we had a lot of fun at the parties in the evening. And I couldn't have been more proud of the way that the students rallied together, especially given how difficult our beginning of the trip was. But before I share too much about them, I'd love for them to share a little bit about their experiences of the week. And so I asked them a few questions and asked them to take some time to respond to it. And so I'm going to ask some questions, and then we'll kind of give and take a little bit, and they thought through some of their responses. One of the questions I asked was, what is something that you're going to bring home from the mission trip that impacted the way that you relate to God? And one of the students who actually responded to that question was Kiki, or Keely Wheeler-Scott. And she's not here today. She's at, I think she's going to start Girl Scout camp this afternoon, so she's already on her way to another camp. But this is how she responded. She said that I can always make a change, no matter what it is. Whatever change I make, God will always be there with me, and he will help me to make the right decision. And Keely did a really great job working all week, and so it was cool for her to share some of her story. The next question I asked was, what was something that really surprised you about the way that you saw God throughout the week? And so they're going to take some time responding to that question. Somebody like to go first?
So I
This is Phil Boston, by the way.
I'm Phil Boston. Well, when we started out at Gateway, I got a chance. We all got a chance to go and watch and help kids paint, and paint. That's all I did. So I thought it was really cool to see kids be able to paint and have fun and be able to not worry about their situation for a day or so. And another really cool thing I saw was that kids, when they painted, they not only were painting their families and writing names and just having fun with it, they were also drawing crosses and talking about Jesus, and I thought that was really cool too.
So Phil's talking about at the Gateway Center at the homeless shelter, he had some opportunities to paint with kids for a couple of days, which was pretty neat. So thanks, Phil. Someone else want to share a little bit? Maddie?
There was a leader, his name was Zach, and he went through some stuff and then finally realized God was the answer. And he was talking to me one day and was saying that, because I got really close to him, so he was like, it wasn't me that you were drawn to, it was the Christ in me that you were drawn to. And I guess that just clicked, and that's when I really saw God for the first time in the trip. And then he said, you're hungry for God and he's calling your name. And that's the first time that I really saw God in the trip.
I just want to say about Zach, I have never seen anyone more excited to just be alive. Yeah. He was always jumping around and laughing, and he had an amazing beard too. He was a really cool guy, and I liked spending the week with him.
Dan?
So one of the ways I did not expect to see God in the trip was the last night we were there, there was a big barbecue, and they invited the homeless people to come in, and just talking to them was really cool. They seemed to really enjoy having somebody to talk to and hang out with at dinner. One guy I talked to really showed me that they are people and stuff. He actually has a book out, and it's really cool. So that was definitely a way I saw God in the trip, and that was really cool.
One way that I saw God was through really working with other people, the homeless community and all that, getting to see and not thinking of myself and thinking beyond me and thinking about others, putting them before I put myself. And I had a lot of trouble with that, at home. It was always me, me, me. And then out here, I'm thinking about other people and helping them. What can I do to help you before I can help myself? And a lot of the kids had that same mentality, and that really opened my eyes, and that's how I saw God.
Haven't thought much about this. Josh kind of said everything I had to say. Our group didn't really get to work with people in the community like the second group did, but what I saw just in our group the entire week was amazing, the way that they supported each other and encouraged one another. And I'm just so proud of the high schoolers especially, because they just were right there to help the middle schoolers along, and they were so supportive, and they were there when conflict arose to kind of just dissipate it. And also every night after worship service, we'd get together in a room, our entire group, and just talk about how we saw God that day. And I'm sorry. And just to hear the stories of how God worked in their lives each night, that surprised me. Not that God could work, but just in the ways that he did work in their lives. And they were just so open and honest, and I could kind of see the changes in them throughout the week. And it was really encouraging as a leader to see that. And also just their attitude the whole week. I mean, we come from being stranded to having to stay at a hotel for the majority of a day in Lynchburg, and they didn't have a bad attitude at all. Everybody got along, and Josh, it was amazing. He is the most patient saint on this earth, I'm telling you. He worked at a table in the lobby and didn't move the entire day, and he's so gracious and patient, so we saw God in that, and I don't know, every day there was something, so.
One of the ways that I saw God during the trip was really through like the service of it all. Our motto of the week was sort of like to go out of your comfort zone and like to get out of your boxes and everything. And I hadn't been on like a missions trip before this one, so I hadn't really experienced like service in the community like in that way, besides like some volunteering and stuff. So I thought it was really cool to see how each one of the leaders, like not only did they tell us to get out of your comfort zone, but they like showed us by example. Like they would reach out to people in the community that we wouldn't have before, and like people like Zach set awesome examples by like he took food after we ate dinner down to the lifeguards at the pool who couldn't leave for dinner. So he was always thinking about like other people, and I thought that was a really cool way to like show an example. And we didn't even have to wait till we got down to the actual missions trip to see people stepping out of their box and out of their comfort zone to help others, like how that awesome guy helped us with the van, and it was really, really cool to see. And I think I'm going to bring that home with me.
Okay, I'm going to go on a quick spiel on Josh, because this one night I remember during devotion I was like, okay, something needs to be said. Josh is like one of the greatest people I've ever met in general, just because of how like patient and nice he is, and how like much he like is devoted to Christ, and like it really just set an example for us all. And I think like there's no one I would have rather been on this youth trip with other than Josh. So thanks a lot, man.
So we had a really fantastic time, and one of the other students who couldn't be here with us, Elise Klontz, who's visiting her grandmother today, she said one of the ways that she saw God was through the kids that she met. She spent some time with Phil painting, and she said that even though they lived on the street, they still played with everyone else as if there wasn't a care in the world, and they still had that feeling of peace and freedom, even though they live harder lives than anyone else we know. And she was just amazed at the way that she saw God give them peace in the middle of their hardships. And so I was really proud of the kids. And one of the things that we talked about at the end of the week was what it looks like to tag, to play the game of tag. That was the other theme of the camp. And we talked a little bit about it, what it looks like to include others in the mission of God. And when we get back home, what does it look like to tag others? And I think some of us have stories of folks we'd like to reach out to, other kids that maybe it looks like getting involved in the ministry here at the church. I was with Daniel, and we had a pretty powerful conversation with some homeless folks. And there was a man who 30 years ago decided to live on the streets as a pastor, and he helped other folks who were without jobs get jobs, and he prayed with them and helped them get baptized. And it was a really powerful experience to see that God operates in ways and out of the boxes that we try to create. And so I think one of the things that we'd love to bring back and challenge is that we felt a very powerful sense of refreshment. Like most people didn't hardly sleep on the way back home on that 10-hour trip. We were basically in the car for like 12 hours on day 7. And we were excited, not because we weren't exhausted, we were, but there's a sense of refreshment that comes when you know that you've given yourself to the mission of God, when you've participated and willingly given of your heart and your life so that others might grow closer to God. And so I want to say a huge thank you to Michelle and Rebecca for their leadership on the trip. They worked really, really hard, and especially at the beginning when the van was broken down and I was on the phone for hours. They were just doing awesome, making sure all the kids were in the pool, and they had great attitudes and led so well. So thank you guys so much for being awesome. And I couldn't have been prouder of our students. The other thing that really impressed me, and I wanted to make sure the parents hear this, is that when we were on the work sites and working together, they were examples by the way that they worked. Other groups were saying, hey, why don't you join with them? Because they're working really hard. They had great attitudes. They always sought to include others, and they didn't do it with this condescending attitude. They would often say, hey, why don't you help me do this? Or, hey, why don't you try doing this? And they had a really kind attitude throughout the whole week. And it was a way that they lived out Christ, not only with the people that we served, but also with their teammates. And so, parents, thank you for all your hard work and loving and raising up great kids. And guys, I'm really proud of you. Thanks for a great week and your faithfulness. So, does anybody else have any other fun things to share? Yeah.
So, about the work, and like working hard. I like working hard. It feels good. But the work at this mission trip thing, it was like completely different from my job that's working construction. And I love my job. But this, like, it felt completely different because I was working, like, completely selflessly. I was working for a cause. I wasn't getting paid. And it was invigorating. It was addicting. And, you know, the more I got, the faster I worked, the harder I worked, and it was cool.
Yeah. Nathan's boss is here, so he just volunteered himself for a couple more weeks of work for free. But do you have one more thing?
So the kids we met and the shenanigans that were had on this trip. I met a lot of really good friends that I'm going to keep forever on this trip, and the jokes that we told to each other and the things that were done. Like the first day at the hotel, I brought a morph suit with me, which is a full-body spandex suit, and I wore that for a little bit, and I'm not going to wear it again ever. But that was a really fun time just to make other people laugh and laugh about it too. And I had a really good time with these guys especially.
Yeah. So thank you for your prayers and your support. And, for us, even though we gave our lives away, we felt a sense of refreshment. And so we just hope that as we shared our story, that it would be an encouragement to you as you're looking for ways to give your life to be refreshed. Sometimes it's backwards. It's actually through giving our lives away that we find the best refreshment. So proud of you guys. Thank you for your hard work, and thank you for praying for us and supporting us along the way and literally helping us get down there when we thought we might not. So thank you. So great job, guys.